Hey everybody, it's Charlie here, V7CQE, with another episode of Ham Talk. Today, since we're locked inside, I figured we'd do something special, and let's have a little a talk and a review, and give you the ins and outs of an antenna that I got, which is really cool. It's a diamond antenna, and it is the W8010 from Diamond Antennas. It is operable on all bands, most bands. It goes 80, 40, 20, 15, and 10. And it is a trapped dipole. And when you order this item, this is how it comes. It looks, this is how it's packaged when you receive it. And it is a really simple to follow instructions on how to put it together as well. It shows you that there are actually two trapped dipoles in one. The horizontal one, or the top one, covers your 40 and 80 meter, 40, 80, and your lower one covers your 15, 20, and 10 meter. Now, excuse me. Now, when you're putting this antenna together, it's real easy to put it together, but you do have to follow the instructions to the letter, especially when it comes to the traps. The putting together the traps, it will show you to put it and wrap around 4 times and then onto the nut. Now, each wire element is clearly labeled A, B, C, D, E, so that you'll know which one goes where. And when you put it together, make sure that you follow the instructions, that you do it just as it said here. And you'll notice that it says adjustment element. Well, each of these are about a foot to 14-inch long wire that hangs off the side. You do not trim the elements themselves. It's the adjustment element that you trim. And guess what? If you screw up, then all you do is put another wire on there and it works. Excuse me for just a quick second here. The wife's dog wanted out of the chair. And so anyway, you're going to be adjusting this antenna using the adjustment elements. Now when you get to the end of your antenna, there are specific measurements that you're going to have to follow with the end of the antenna. You're going to have 55 centimeters coming from where it goes through your insulator at the end. Make sure you have that left over as a tail, which will droop down 5 centimeters from the end of the insulator. When you do that, then that gives you that droop down section is a trimming element for 80 meters or for the 10 meter that you have coming into itself. Now, putting this together is not that difficult. It takes maybe about half hour to an hour to do, but follow the directions precisely. And on each of the excuse me, on each of the elements that you're going to be putting together, you're also going to have excuse me, you're also going to have a measurements there as well as to how you need it to go together. Now when you go to trim this antenna, every centimeter counts, as you'll see here. On every band you will trim as needed to the frequency that's needed. And remember, you're actually trimming the trim sections, not the elements themselves. Okay? Very important that you remember that. And each trim is different. Now when you trim this antenna, my advice is to not cut the wire, but fold it back on itself and wrap it around. And when you do that, you'll find it works very, very well. The 8010 antenna is one which, if done right, will work extremely well for you. Excuse me. and operates. I've had regular dipoles and whatnot, but this one, the 8010, replaced all of my single band dipoles to make it a truly multi-band system, and I like it that way. It works really, really well. Now, on 80 meters, it is very narrow banded, but that's to be expected with a trap antenna, that it will be narrow banded. On 40 meters, less of a narrow band. 20 meters, well, on 40 meters, I pretty much does the whole band, sorry. On 20 meters, again, whole band. The 10 meters does quite a bit of it. So really, 80 meters is the only band where you're going to have a lot of tuning to do, and you're going to need an antenna tuner for 80 meters. Having said this, the typical SWR that I get with this antenna on 40 meters when trimmed right starts at about 7 or 6.98 megahertz to 7.5 megahertz is less than 1.2. On 20 megahertz it starts at about 14.002 megahertz to 14.38, and it is 1.6 or less. For the 80 meter band, I have mine tuned for 3.72 megahertz, but the bandwidth of that at 1.1, but the bandwidth of that less than 2 starts at about 3.65 to 3.75, so very narrow banded. You're going to need a tuner for 80 meters. It is an antenna that is really, the performance is amazingly good. I'm really surprised, really pleased with it, and I have made sure that it works really well. And on one end I have up in the tower, and another end I have up in the tree at 48 feet, and it works really well for that. So if you're going to splurge or to get an antenna and you really want to be cost effective, the Diamond W8010 is definitely one that you should consider. Performance is great, price point is relatively cheap, not that hard to put together, and really easy to trim and tune, and it will give you a full spectrum of all of the bands that you want to work in HF, or at least the most common ones. So that being said, when you go to put this together, you're going to need a couple of tools. You're going to need, I would suggest an adjustable wrench. You're going to need wire cutters to cut your tie wires, because you're going to tie the wires at the specific lengths after they've come off of the ends and off of the excuse me, off of the ballon itself, or the feed point. The feed point, the common feed point, again, real easy to do and easy to put on. But as I said before, it is a for want of a better term, a double dipole antenna that puts 2 or 3 shortened dipoles on each actual dipole. So you've got everything you need there. Really easy. The packaging is really good, real simple. The instructions are easy to follow, and essentially give yourself I'd give yourself about an hour to do it and do it right. When you go to tune the antenna, as I always suggest, have pulleys or some sort of system where you can raise it and lower it, because you need to tune it in place as to where it's going to be. Once it's tuned right, it is a hard antenna to beat. Really difficult antenna to beat. The traps are rather sturdy. I myself took some electrical tape and did another layer of protection over the traps, but it's really not needed. They're really sturdy, really good. They're clearly marked as to where they are, what they're for, and where they go. Just remember, when you go to do this, again, do not ever trim the elements between the traps. You're going to trim the tails that come down off of them. And the antenna itself can be inverted V. It can be horizontal and inverted V, as is shown in the diagram of the instructions. Or you can have them both horizontal. The only limitation is that the two different dipole sets of elements need to be at least 30 degrees off, 30 degrees away from each other, 30-degree angle away from each other. Whether it's horizontal or whether you're doing an inverted V and a flat, doesn't really matter. As long as you have that 30 degrees of separation, you'll do just fine. Myself, I would highly recommend this antenna for anyone who wants to get an HF antenna for a limited space. You do need about 65 feet if you're going to go straight, if you're going to go horizontal with the top end. That's all I've got to say about that. And so, if you get the chance and you're looking for a great antenna, I would recommend the Diamond W8010 trap dipole. Performs great, price point's great, and real easy to put together. Until next time, this is Charlie, VE7CQE for Ham Talk, Sterling the Wonder Dog, and Miss Tina saying 7-3, have a good one, and we'll see you next episode.